Hello, how you guys doing? This is ArtsyWisdom. My name's Diane. Thank you for coming by. Today I'm going to do a couple difficult subjects. I had mentioned I already looked into Bryan Kohberger, and you'll notice I'm changed. I did that last week. And today I'm recording about the Black Dahlia. And so I'm putting them together. Two mysteries, one of which is not much as a mystery as a crime situation where he's going to court, Bryan Kohberger, to see if he gets convicted of killing those Idaho students. Okay, so Bryan Kohberger, I got into his energy, so you guys don't need to worry about me. Everything is fine. Protected myself very well, but I do have a sense of his person, and he did do it, but I wanted to see it prior. I wanted to get into him prior to what happened to see why or the motivation. But what I ended up getting into his energy was about how he looks at the world, his perspective, and how he feels about himself. So I feel autistic, like there's a disconnect. It's autistic or somewhere on the spectrum. I don't know exactly where, but I feel like he's channeled thinking, like this is what I believe and this is the reality. Otherwise is it too much? Kind of. But the thing is, I just realized is that because of this autism, he gets frustrated, but that triggers in him the desire to feel deeply, because there's something where he cannot exhibit emotion somehow. So I feel a little schizophrenic. Not that I know what that feels like, but I feel like even when I look at his face, I've seen it looks schizophrenic or mentally ill. I shouldn't diagnose him, but I feel like there's some mental illness there. But I asked him right away if I could come in after I got protected. White light, Archangel Michael, everybody's around me, so it's okay. Eager to show me he was not guilty, which I think is interesting. But he wanted to show me he will be, but I said he will be found guilty. I went separately. He'll be found guilty. I said, let me understand. And he says, I did not know what I was doing. He said, they made me by ignoring me. So that's his resolution or reconciling of what he did versus what he perceives. He's disassociates quite a bit. I felt that too. So I think there's this, I'm not a psychiatrist, but there's some disassociation that affects him where he travels in between and he gets emotional. Part of him wants to have connection, but he can't. So because he physically or something's wrong with his brain. So it's like he wants to go into that world of emotions and feeling and connection, but because he couldn't get there or he couldn't have a relationship or even anybody really, I feel like he's very alone. I feel like a lot of aloneness. He says they made me do it but by ignoring me. That was one of the first things he said. But the other thing he gets is this adrenaline rush. And it feels like pornography or an obsession, not necessarily a sexual thing. It might be, but it feels like these guys that can't stop. And this is him obsessing. And he gets high. It was a high. It was a feeling because he finally gets to feel something like that. So he got into this in his headspace or his body, basically. And he says he likes taboo stuff. He really likes taboo things. And that makes him high too. That gets him. So it's something where his brain is activated there, so he can have this interaction. It's almost like he creates a world where, I have this emotional experience, even though it's not real, but he perceives it's real because he's feeling something, and he projects it onto them. Like I said, it feels like a sexual high, pornographic obsession. And then I'm in his energy and I look down at his hands and he shows me like this, and they're white and there's nothing on them. They're clean. And he said, see, no blood. He says, see, they're clean. there's that old saying, you know, blood on your hands. Is it Pontius Pilate? Washing his hands. I have no blood on my hands. I don't feel it's satanic. It's not that. I don't feel like he, you know, had an altar and he was pledging allegiance to the darkness. But it is quite dark. And like I said, he disassociates during the act. He's not there. He's in another place. He can't stop because of this high, this adrenaline rush. So then I'm there, and I'm not actually there, but I feel the feelings that he's feeling. It feels so good. I get this feeling that feels really good in him, and it's so creepy. So you'd think he'd be angry, and I'm mad that you're ignoring me, but I can't quite reconcile. So he's mad, but at the same time, he's feeling something for a change. And this feeling, he conflates that with anger and obsession. And then I also feel like it's a childlike magical thinking thing, obviously, because it makes no sense. And I do feel like he's very smart, like almost genius level. I don't know if that's true or not. So that also is a way for him to cover a lot of his actions, manipulate people, situations prior to in his life before this happened. So again, he goes somewhere in his mind, not just in the act of doing it, before where he lives in his head, goes somewhere, and he's very alone, and so it's very strange. He feels disassociated, but when he's there in that state of just he, himself, and he, you know, you mean myself and I, it's a world in there. Couldn't tell you exactly what's in there, but it's lonely. It doesn't feel good. And, but he doesn't have the ability to somehow break out except for this. So it's an obsession that became, and he was taking it to its conclusion, basically. I did see him. I feel like he won't make it to a long life. And it could be when he gets to prison, somebody might do something. And I also saw his parents looking at him, at me, and very deeply sad. I know they're defending him, but there's a deep sadness there, a deep sadness. And I feel kind of like JonBenet Ramsey's parents, where they, what's his mom's name? Let's say Mary. I know that's not right. Anyway, I feel that same feeling, like they might get sick and it affects them physically because of this. As it does, emotional stress can make a person sick. It just does. It's the way our body works. So I think it might affect them long term. But I do feel creepy, so I'm going to, after I get done talking to you, I'm going to do a cleanse and wipe down my etheric body. And so nothing is attached. I don't feel like anything is attached, but I do want to get it out of here, and remove it completely, thoroughly. And I ask all my angels to heal me and fill me with pink and loving light and seal my energy bubble. All right. So there you go. And as I didn't do in this previous section, talking about Bryan Kohberger and his viewpoint, I want to give my deepest condolences, and I want to respect the victims here. He isn't the victim, he's the perpetrator. And I'm going to look into their energies, these 4 students down the road. That feels so sad, so very sad. And I want to send their family love and healing. I feel like they're still around, the kids are, and they will be around until this is all settled. And I'll tell you what I see at another time, but I just wanted to share that with you. But the Black Dahlia is an old unsolved mystery from 1947 in LA. Her name was Elizabeth Short, and I guess the paper named her Black Dahlia. Her murder was especially gruesome. I don't want to get into too many details, but she was just 22, and I guess she had moved there, something about her father dying. I don't remember exactly, but she was bouncing around. She worked as a waitress, but she didn't really have a place that she lived. I guess now you would call her homeless, and she was crash surfing or couch surfing and crashing in people's homes and hotels or whatever. But I looked at from her perspective. I do this on a soul level, lessons learned in that life. I get into that energy. If they've passed, where have they been? Are they coming back? Have they come back? Or what how they feel, right? So I get into her energy and she's very welcoming. She's like, okay, great, let's get started. Like, okay. So 1947, it's like 80 some years ago or whatever it is. And I'm immediately in front of a house. And at first, I'm not sure if I went in the house. But the big thing, she's like, let's start outside. She's like, I need to start outside. I'm like, okay. So, and I'm trying to figure out if they missed something in the evidence or there was something specific that they didn't look at. And I believe, after I went through all my notes, or after I went through all of this, I think she was murdered somewhere and dumped where they found her body. So I think this is where the murder scene happened. I don't believe they know who this is, or they found him. It's long past now, I'm sure. But the big thing is she shows me it's a small little step to go into this door, little house. But there's something about a fence right here. It's very important that she shows me this fence. And it's not like a white picket fence. It's wood planks next to each other. And I see it a light color, but I don't know if that's like a light cedar or what, but it feels more painted. But there's something about it that she's questioning. It's giving her a sense of, but she ignores it. There's something about that something she sees, something that she notices, or some intuition thing that she gets when she's looking at that fence. And it's just short. It might even be a part of a little wall or shed or something. There's some little wall right there. Yeah, maybe it is paneling on the side of a small structure instead, because it's more vertical like that. Anyway, she's telling me that's something she had a feeling right then and there. And there's something about the location. She was tricked, but she's really naive, and she's also desperate. The energy of her is day to day, minute by minute, getting through my days, trying to eat, live. And, in the 40s in LA, it was growing like gangbusters, but there was a lot of nefarious people, criminal organizations that were trying to get their little roots in the system there. So I don't feel it's that, though. I don't feel it's, although I'll tell you what I got about that person. Again, I said the fencing or the wall. She's outside of the house was very important. And the person lied about where they were going, or he lied and what they were going to do, obviously. He just lied because he wanted to get her there. But the thing is she looks at him and she went with him. Maybe he said, oh, you can stay at my place or something like that. But she looked at him and he looked like a cheap version of an actor, a cheap version of Errol Flynn or something. That's the feeling I got. And that's what she saw when she looked at him. But he wasn't Errol Flynn, obviously, but he looked, so she felt a sense of kind of safety and a little, enamored by his looks and being near Hollywood. So I think she went to some sort of seedy type place. I don't think he picked her up. They say the last time anybody saw her was some man dropped her off near a hotel, but she wasn't staying there. And she was on the road. She didn't have an address, and he dropped her off. I feel like she went into a seedy location. At first I thought it was a bar, but it's something, it might be a bar, but it feels different. It feels like a place that you'd place bets or something like that. Or, you go in the back room and there's a whole different group of people in the back, you know what I mean? I don't think she was involved with them, but it's that kind of vibe. And I don't know where that was exactly, but she went there and he was there. I think he had his eyes on her. I think he watched her for a little while. I don't think he stalked her for days. I think it was just the recent time. She knew she was risking her life all the time. She lived on the edge. But I think the feeling is she felt like she didn't have a choice, and that's the way she lived her life. You know, people, they just do things that are crazy and they take chances all the time. And you're like, how can you do that? And they know it's possibly that they can get hurt, but they'd like to have that adrenaline rush. I don't know if hers was an adrenaline rush as much as it was like, this is how I live. This is my normal, basically. And I said she felt like he was kind of looked like a movie star. He had killed before, and he kills after. He doesn't have a problem with that. He's definitely a serial killer. And her body was mutilated to a point where that was what made the news back in the day. I'll tell you what I get into his head, but what I saw with him. Yeah. And I feel like he has a family, and I feel like he moved around a lot. Like, not quite nomadic, but almost like truck drivers, they travel for work and then they go back to their home. Feels like that. So he lived a double life, maybe? Yeah. And, but she feels desperate to anyone to help her in her life. She feels very desperate. And definitely alcohol involved. He offers her, I don't know, maybe it's booze at the house. No, it was before that. It was at this place. She might have just went in or asked for a cigarette and he was there. Anyway, so I don't want this to be triggering or anything, but I do feel like, I don't know if they found evidence of that because of the way her body was, but I feel like she was definitely assaulted. And now when I'm in her position, and it was fast. It was fast. I'm just saying. It wasn't like hours or anything, but there was a period of time, but it was fast. But I'm looking at his eyes, and looking from her perspective, and he has black eyes, like shark eyes, like no soul. She's looking at him, and it's like there's nothing there, no emotion at all, which is interesting because she just saw him as this kind of almost movie star kind of vibe. Anyway, he's definitely a psychopath, and I told you that, the kind like drives trucks and maybe travels from hither and yon. And then when I'm looking at him now. Things are over, and he has killed her, taken her up, and then taken her apart. But I'm looking at him from her perspective, and he's just like so matter of fact, like he's looking down, and I'm being in her position. And hey, you guys, don't worry, I'm in this position for whatever reason. This doesn't feel like there's any dark entities around it or anything. Kohberger, on the other hand, that's another subject. Geronimo, very scary. I have no idea why. This situation, I'm just going through, it's like I'm watching a movie. Anyway, so I'm looking at him, and he's just like above me, and he's just covering me in some sort of rug or fabric. Back then, I don't know if they had plastic tarps, rubberized things, and I'm being wrapped in something and round, and tied up. And that's when I think I was taken, or she was taken to the other location and deposited there. I think he's very careful. I think he had gloves on. To do that part. Obviously there's no DNA then. And because of the lack of his being anywhere, and he didn't have a history because he wasn't a criminal, he was very psychopathic, so he didn't have a history in the books for fingerprints. I think that was about it back then. And because she was moving around so much, they could never get it on anybody. They never found the murderer. But the funny thing is from her perspective, I don't know if it's funny, but at first I was thinking about Errol Flynn. She thinks he looks like Errol Flynn, but now I see him and he's got this like little bulbous nose. Like on the tip of his nose, he's got a little round tip on the end of his nose. Errol Flynn, I don't think, had that. But so she saw him as really handsome, and it's like a C version of a movie star. Or she wanted him. It's like beer goggles. She really wanted him to look like that. So I asked her eventually he did some jobs. He didn't do them then, but eventually he was doing jobs for the mob, eventually, in multiple locations. Somehow word got out that he did that. Not often, because he was kind of a loner, even though I think somewhere he had a family. Anyway, so she's back again. She has been back. I think she's passed again. But her karma in all of her lives is like that one. Short, intense, risk-taking. And then I'm in the mind of a medieval time. Her karma is to get out of that pattern of risk-taking and come into the world in a place where she's in the deficit, where she grew up in a family that didn't have anything, and she has to build herself up and maybe live longer. But a lot of her lives were short and intense, and it's almost like her soul doesn't know how to live long. That's the feeling I get. So staying in that mindset of taking risks, knowing it'll be over soon anyway, kind of vibe. I think that's what I'm feeling from her. She's not, of course, it's long gone, and she's at peace, she's moved on, she's recovered. And it's funny, a lot of people have to do a lot of healing when they go to the other side due to their life and lessons and things they didn't learn. And sometimes tragedies like this, a person has to go through a lot of healing. For whatever reason, she did, although it was 1947, but time is on the other side, doesn't mean anything. Her recovery wasn't as drastic as I thought it might be. I feel like she's a simpler soul. Does that make sense? Like the depth to her, and I'm not trying to belittle her in any way. I'm just saying her soul feels, maybe it's a more youthful soul. Like she has to go through a lot more incarnations. That's the other thing. Maybe that's it. And so hasn't accumulated as much as other people have. So yeah, she's on the other side, and well, not anymore. I think she's passed, she came back, and I think that person has already passed, whoever she was. And then I wrote it down. I said, died lots young. That's what I said. The karmic is learning how to care for myself. She said, I'm learning how to care for myself, because the feeling I got was she was in this desperate mode of, the addictive kind of quality where you're getting your next hit kind of vibe. Not that she was doing that, but it was more about just survival kind of vibe. Anyway, but there's also some emotional and mental, I don't want to say deficit, but there's some challenges there that she had to deal with. So she came in with that too. Anyway, and she was naive, and she believed that it would be fine. Like kind of that sort of. She was a Leo. She was born on July 29th, 24. And like I said, she died in 47. She was 22. It was in January. But yeah, anyway. So if you guys find that interesting, let me know. I had never really investigated her. I was thinking about that film noir with Russell Crowe and Kim Basinger. Does it say that Dahlia? It's something white. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it on here because I'll remember. That's like that vibe from the 40s, mystery, and people are kind of sneaking around and you can't trust people. That was when Russell Crowe was thin, much younger. But like all of us were thinner and much younger back then. All right. I guess that's it. Thank you again. You guys take care. All of this energy is away from me, and everybody's moved on. Many blessings to you. Take care.